Welcome to our class for today. If you are struggling to get that perfect pencil skirt fit without discomfort while walking, then stay with me in this class. In this video, I will show you how to draft, cut, and sew a professional pencil skirt with waist dart, zipper, back slit, and inseam finish. We are going to finish this skirt with neat inseam finish. So let's get started. The first thing I'll do is to take my vertical measurement, my waist to my hip. I'll mark that here, 9 inches. My waist to my knee, 19 inches. My skirt length is 26 inches. I'll repeat that again over here. I'll connect the points now. Next thing I'll do is take my waist measurement. So my waist is 33 divided by 4, that will give me 8.25. For my front, I'm going to add 1 inch that. So 8.25 plus 1 inch, that will give me 9.25. And I'll mark that over here, 9.25. Then I'll go over to my hip. My hip is 44 divided by 4, that will give me 11 inches. I'll go to my knee and I'll take off 0.75 from my hip measurement. So that will give me 10.25, and I'll mark that over here. I'll take the same measurement as my hemline, 10.25. I'll connect the points. I'll go over to the back. The first thing I'll do is to take in my center back zip tightening. So I'll go in by 1 inch. Then from there, I'm going to take my waist measurements. So 33 divided by 4, that will give me 8.25. But for the back, that allowance, I want to add 1.5. I'm not using 1 inch because of the but. So 8.25 plus 1.5, that will give me 9.75. I'll mark that over here. Then I'll go over to my hip. 44 divided by 4, 11 inches. Then I'll go over to my knee. The same way I did for the front, I'm going to take off 0.75, and that will give me 10.25. So I took off 0.75 from the hip measurement. I will take that 10.25 at the hemline also, and that will give me 10.25. I'll connect the points. I'll connect the back tightening to the hip. I'll go to my hip. I'll come down by 4.5 inches. I'll mark that here. I'll go back to my knee and I'll mark 1 inch. I'm using 1 inch for the tightening at the back. I'll also mark 1 inch here too at the hemline. Then at the point that I came down by 4.5, I will mark 0.5 here. Then I'll connect the points. I'll connect from this 0.5 to my center back. Then I'll connect from this point to my knee measurement. So after this, I'll go to my center front. I'll come down by 1 inch to avoid smile lines at the center front. So, but before I mark this, I'm going to impute my darts. So my bust span is 7.5 inches divided by 2. That will give me 3.75, and I will mark that over here. I'll go to my hip line. I'll mark that 3.75 also. From my hip line, I'll come up by 3 inches. Then I will connect the point. I added 1 inch for the dart. So I'm going to shear that 1 inch. That's 0.5 on both sides. Then I'll go over to the back. So whenever you're creating that, you start from the center back or you start from the center front. So you measure your dart from the center, not from the side. So I'll go to my center back. I'm going to measure 3.75 and that's over here. So to get that measurement at my hip, I'm going to take this complete measurement. That's what I have here is 4.75. I'll come here also and measure that 4.75. Then I'm going to come up from my hip by 3 inches. I'll mark that. I'll connect the lines. I added 1.5 for the dart at the back. So I'm going to shear that and that will give me 0.75 on both sides. Then I'll connect the points. So for my side back, I'm going to come up by 1/4 inch. I'll come up by 1/4 inch. That's I'm coming up by 0.25 here. If you don't do this, when you are joining your sides together, you will realize that the front will be, you will have excess at the front. So to make up for the back, you come up by 0.25. I will connect from my dart leg. I'm going to separate this pattern so that I'll be able to close this dart, then connect this line. Before you cross any dart, you must close that dart so you have a straight line. So I'll go ahead and I'll close this dart temporarily. So we are still going to sew it on the skirt, but you need to close it temporarily so you can rule this line. The reason why I said temporarily is because we're still going to sew this just the same way we did for our bust dart in our basic bodies. You close it temporarily, you rule your line, then you open it up again. This is my front block. I'm going to write this CF, which means center front. Then I'll roll my grain line. This is a symbol for place on fold. Then I'll cut off the excess by the side of the front pattern. So this is the front pattern. Let's cut the back pattern. The reason why I did not close the dart for the back is because this line is not crossing the dart. So whenever you're going to cross a dart, you have to close the dart temporarily before you mark any line across it. I'm going to mark my green line now. I was supposed to have marked it before cutting. So we have finished cutting. This is my center back, side back, and side front. So we have finished cutting the pattern for the skirt with that. The next thing we'll do is to cut this pattern out on fabric. Then we'll also cut our lining. Right here, I finished cutting out my pattern on my fabric. So I added 1/2 inch at the waistline to turn this skirt with my lining. Then I added 1 inch at the center back for my zipper allowance and also for the seam at the back. Then I added 1 inch at the side. I added 1 inch at the side for my side seam. Then at my hemline, I added 2 inches at the hemline. I repeated the same for the front. I also added 1/2 inch at the top, 1 inch at the side, and also 2 inches at the hemline. Then for the lining, I've already cut the lining. I added 1/2 inch at the top, 1 inch at the side. I actually used my fashion fabric to cut out the lining. So, but the length of the lining, I made it 2.5 inches shorter than the main fabric. So let me go over it again. I used my pattern to cut out my fabric. Then I made my fabric 2 inches longer. I made my fabric 2 inches longer than my pattern. Then for my lining, I made my lining 2.5 inches shorter than my fashion fabric. So the next thing we'll do is to sew this skirt using inseam finishing. We are going to start the sewing of the skirt, and I'm going to remove my pins. One of the things you should do is to mark the wrong side of your fabric so you don't end up sewing the wrong side as the right side. Don't forget to notch your dart placement before taking off your patterns. Ensure you notch it. I usually notch my hip line, my knee line, my hemming allowance on my fashion fabric as well as on my lining. I repeat these notches. What I will do next is to sew in my dart, and I notched it, so I will fold it this way, and I will make sure that they both align before I start to sew. I will measure 6.5 inches because I added half inch at the waistline for the sewing allowance. Therefore, I will measure 6.5 inches and I will sew it down. I will repeat the same thing at the other side of the front skirt. Don't forget, I'm sewing on the wrong side of my fabric. Right here, I've sewn all the darts. I've taken in all my darts, both the front and the back. I've done the same for the lining too. Because this is inseam, you have to sew anything you do on your fashion fabric, you have to repeat it on your lining. So I've sewn in my darts for both the front and the back. The next thing I'll do is to go to my center back. I'll sew in 1 inch all the way to my knee point. So always give this a notch. See my notch? I also gave my hemming allowance notch. Do the same at your hip line. This will help you to align your fabric while you sew, so you will not end up having difficulty while sewing. Go ahead now and stitch that 1 inch all the way to my knee line. Then I'll go to the ironing table and press all my darts. Don't forget, whenever you're ironing your darts, iron it towards the center. So I will iron this towards my center back. I'll do the same for the front. I will iron it towards the center front. So I finished sewing from my hip line to my knee point. The next thing I'll do after ironing is to fix in my zipper at my center back. So this is my skirt zip. It should be 13 inches or so. So that's it. I will fix it at my center back. The same way we fix our zipper in our basic dress is the same approach we are going to use. The first thing I'll do is to change my presser foot to zipper foot. The same approach, I'm going to fold this zipper this way. I'll mark the point where I will start sewing from, and I'll make sure that this point aligns with the 1/2 inch sewing allowance I gave at the waistline. So I'm going to mark that 1/2 inch here. Then I will take my zipper with the zipper head, this zipper head facing my fabric, the right side of my fabric, and then this place should align. I will place it this way and make sure that I sew on this 1 inch line. Right now, I will join the sides of the skirt. After joining the sides of my skirt, the next thing I will do is to join that of the lining. But the difference is that I'm not going to join the zipper area. It will be left open. My center back, the center back of the skirt, I will leave it this way. Then, while joining the side of my lining, at the waistline, I will actually use that 1 inch that I used for my sewing allowance. That 1 inch, I will use it here. But as I'm going down, I will reduce the sewing allowance. So instead of using 1 inch, I will use 1/2 inch or even 1/4 inch. The reason why we do this is so that there will be enough ease inside the lining, so you'll be able to wear the skirt. If you use exactly 1 inch all around, that skirt will become so tight. If you check your ready-made skirt, like a suit skirt, you will notice that there is usually ease in the skirt or in the jacket. You will find ease there, so you'll be able to wear that garment with ease, and you'll still have comfort. Not that when you wear it, it will be so tight you will not be able to move your leg or raise your hand. So that's why in the lining we usually go in. Instead of you to use 1 inch for your sewing allowance, you are going to reduce your sewing allowance. You can use half an inch, or you can even use 1/4 of an inch. For me, I'm going to use 1/4 of an inch to sew. So let's do that now. Don't forget, you will join the sides, but you will leave the zipper allowance free. That one will still be left open.
Use 1 inch at the hemline to align your lining with your fashion fabric.
I started with 1 inch at the waist, then I moved in. I actually used 1/4 of an inch. You can use half an inch, like I said, you can use 3/8 of an inch, but just go in. Let it not be exactly 1 inch. Then I continued that way up until my knee point. Then I started moving again towards 1 inch because I need the hemline and the waistline to align with my fashion fabric. Because I used 1 inch on my fashion fabric, therefore I need to make sure I have 1 inch at the waistline and at the hemline, so that the lining will align with my fashion fabric. So let me go over it again. At your waistline, use 1 inch to sew. Then you move your hand gradually in, and you continue it up until at least your knee line. Then you start going gradually again towards 1 inch at your hemline, so you'll be able to use this lining to turn your fashion fabric. The next thing I will do is to use the down part, the hem of my lining. I'll use it to turn my fashion fabric. So I will make sure that right sides are facing each other. I'll take the lining, the right side of the lining will face the right side of the skirt at the hemline. So I'm going to take the lining this way. This is the wrong side. The wrong side is facing me. The wrong side of the lining will face me. Then I'll take it and place on the right side of the skirt this way. And I'll use my pin to hold it. I'll just take it around to be sure that I have the same amount of fabric on both the lining and the fashion fabric. So I want to make sure that I don't have any excess and that the seams align. So I'll use my pin and go around it now. So I've done that now. Now, after holding it down around the hemline, the next thing is to sew it. So we'll go to the sewing machine, we'll sew it. Then I'll come back to show you next step. Right here, I finished giving the skirt a good press. I ironed both the fashion fabric and the lining. So you iron the seam flat inside, and you also iron both the lining, the right side, iron it flat. Do the same for the fashion fabric. For the hemline, you know that the lining is shorter than the fashion fabric. So after you iron, you drag it upwards. So that way you will be able to get your skirt length. After doing that, the next thing we want to achieve is to conceal all the rough edges for both the lining and the fashion fabric. We don't want all this to be shown. Remember, I said in the beginning of this video that we are finishing the skirt using inseam. So we want all the seam to be inside. All the seam will be tucked inside. So the next thing I will do is to take this lining, this part, and then conceal all the rough edges on both the lining and the fashion fabric this way. So this is what I want to do this way from the beginning to the end, to the hemline. So how do I achieve that? I will go through the waist. I will go through the waistline. Then I will take this part of the lining, I will turn it towards the fashion fabric. So let me open the zip first. Open up the zipper. You open up the zipper allowance this way. When you open up this way, you take the lining and then you turn it to face the zipper like this. So I'm going to use my pin to hold it first. And then you go through the waistline. So I'm going to go to the waistline all the way to the hemline. I want to tuck everything in. So I will take it in like this. Then I'll bring it out this way. We have other methods of doing this, but since I'm teaching this, I have to look for the easiest way so you'll be able to understand, because it's at this point a lot of people mix it up. They find it difficult to finish it well. So you make sure just make sure that it aligns. My hip on the lining and on the fashion fabric aligns. You do the same for every notch part. Make sure that they align. Tuck the zipper in. Hold that too. And then you also take it all the way to the hem. Now, after doing this, I will take this to the sewing machine and I will sew. Remember, we gave 1 inch sewing allowance on this, but I'm not going to use the whole of the 1 inch. I will sew like I'll use 0.75 or 0.5 of an inch to sew. I'm not going to get all the way to the 1 inch. So when I finish doing this, I'll come back to the table and then we'll continue. I have finished sewing the other parts of the rough edge at my zipper allowance. You can see this is the reason why I said use 0.75 to sew. It will not be so nice that the lining will be at the edge here. It will not be so nice to see the lining from the outside. So that's why we're moving a bit from that 1 inch. You can either use 0.5 or 0.75, like I said. It's just for your fashion fabric to still show the way this one is showing up here. So that's why we're moving. So you can see both the zipper edge everywhere has been concealed neatly. So the next thing I will do, I'll repeat the same thing I did here. The only difference is that I'm going to leave some allowance to turn, because I'm going to sew this waistline also. I'm sewing the waistline. So I'm going to leave like, let's say 4 to 5 inches opening so I can turn the skirt from there. So I'm going to come down from my hip line, let's say by 2 inches. From my, this is my hip line, I'll come down by 2 inches here. And from my knee line, I'm going to come up by another 2 inches. So let's say what I have here is 5 inches. So that's what I will use to turn this skirt. I'm going to go to my machine now. I will sew all the way from the hem. I will get to this line that I made here. I will stop, back stitch there, then skip from here to here. Sew again all the way to the waistline. So when I get to the waistline, when I do this, I'll come back and I will show us how we are going to finish the waistline. Right here, I've finished sewing it. Exactly what I explained. I sewed from the inside all the way from the hem. Then I left 4 inches over here. I left 4 inches. Then I continued to the waistline. And when you finish sewing here and here, make sure you trim off the edge so you don't have bulk there. So let me explain what I mean. You go back to the hemline. That place that you sewed, you are going to have some excess there. Just trim it off a bit. I'm going to show you what I mean. At the tip, just trim it off a bit so it will lay flat. Then you tuck this in again. This is what we want to achieve now. I'm going to unzip my skirt. This is what we want to achieve. We want to sew it this way. So I'll go to the sewing machine now. I'm going to sew all the way. I'm going to sew the waistline. When I finish sewing the waistline, I will now turn my skirt to the right side using that opening that we left. I'll sew from here this way. Let me just go ahead and pin it. This is my waistline. So my darts, make sure that they align. Your side seam, make sure that they align. So then I'll pin. I'll continue this way until I get to the other part of the zipper. So you can see everything aligns. So whenever you're sewing inseam, it's just like you're sewing two skirts, because whatever you do for the main fabric, for the fashion fabric, you repeat the same for the lining. It's time consuming, but the final result is usually lovely. So I'll go to the sewing machine now. I will use hemming gum on my lining while sewing this so that everything will just relax. Then when I'm done, I'll come back here and I'll turn the skirt from the inside to the right side. Right here, I've sewn my waistline and I used hemming gum. After doing this, I will now turn my skirt from the opening to the right side. So this is the opening. I'll turn the skirt from the right side. Bring out all the edges of the waistline. I have finished giving the skirt a good press. So this is the front, this is the back. Everything is laying flat and they all align. So let's check the inside. This is the inside. This is the back. I've ironed everything. I used hemming gum to conceal that opening that I use in turning the skirt inside out. Here is the waistline. So iron it in such a way that the lining will not be showing outside, but rather it will be the fashion fabric that will be seen this way. Iron it this way, so everything will just lay flat. So I'm going to put the skirt on now and show you what it looks like on my body. Take a look at the zipper. It's laying very flat. The side seam, the back slits, they are well pressed. Please, if you found value in this video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe,
and leave me a comment until our next class. Bye bye for now.